Hi, my name's Rich Sparks. I'm your local realtor who specializes in transitioning adults. Now, what is a transitioning adult? A transitioning adult is someone that 50 plus crowd. They've built up multiple assets over the years, and their real estate transactions tend to be a little more complex, whether it's involving downsizing, probate, estates, things of that nature. So we've done a lot of training to make sure that those types of transactions go smoothly. And a big part of that is making sure that our ancillary services that are involved in this transaction, they understand those same things and what to look out for. One very important part is the title company, something you probably don't think of much, but is paramount to having a good transaction. So today we're here with Tina from First Premier Title. We're going to ask her some questions, educate you a little bit about title insurance, what it is, who is it for, what's it do. Hey Tina, how are you?
Good, Richard. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. So we're going to start off real quick and talk about what is title insurance and why do we need it?
Well, title insurance is to make sure that your property is free and clear when you go to sell the property.
Okay.
So at First Premier Title, what we do is make sure that we check the county records, make sure there's no liens on there, that nobody can come back and make a claim on the property.
So just so I understand, so if the title work isn't done correctly, a year, 2 years down the road, the seller of this previous home could be sitting back enjoying a cup of coffee and get a phone call saying that there's problems that they have to fix?
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
Yes. It could be something that a tax lien would arise if they didn't pay their taxes, or a claim of interest of a builder lien if it was a new construction. Things that have showed up most commonly are, there could have been a mortgage that they've taken out that never got discharged properly. May have been that they took out an equity line that wasn't cleared up. So that's when we make sure that when we're issuing that policy to the buyer, that they can't come back to the seller with any claims.
So once you've done your search and everything looks good, what's the second part of that title?
What we do is we issue what is called a final policy. And that is usually done by our underwriter. We have an underwriter, which is First American.
Okay.
So they are the ones that insure the loan. We provide everything to them, saying that we've done our due diligence to make sure that everything is free and clear, so that they can insure to issue that policy to the buyer.
Okay, so it's almost like getting insurance for your car, where you have an insurance broker who then the policy's actually issued from a larger corporation.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, how's the prices determined? Are they regulated?
Actually, they are state regulated.
Okay, so
Yeah.
regardless of what title company you go to, the prices are pretty much the same.
That is correct. Yep, we all have kind of a rate sheet that we go by, which is state regulated.
All right. So at that point, so if the prices are the same, really a key factor is you want to find someone who understands the overall transaction.
Correct.
Okay.
And someone that has, you don't want to really go by a fly-by-night title company. You like to go with somebody that has experience in it, because you want to make sure that the transaction's done properly.
Oh, absolutely. And I've got to tell you about an experience we just had with one of our clients. And it was an estate type sale. The property was a condo, so there was an association involved. It was a cash deal. Okay. And if I was to provide you with all the proper information, how long would it take you to do that transaction?
On a cash sale, it could probably be done within 3 to 4 days.
Okay. Once you had the association paperwork.
Correct, yeah. Once we had everything, yeah.
Well, we had a different title company involved in this, not by my choice. They primarily, what their function was, they handled refis for a particular bank.
Okay.
They were an out-of-state title company.
Keyword, out of state, sorry.
Trust me, I was like, don't do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it wasn't my choice. It took 5 weeks.
Oh, yeah, that should have never been.
Oh, my goodness. And I was hand-feeding them the information, running down the association form. I was literally at the treasurer of the association's home at 9 o'clock at night.
And you know what? And that's another thing with the out-of-state companies, is they don't know our guidelines, and then actually when it comes to the closing, they're hiring someone to come do that closing for them that have no clue what's going on with the transaction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oftentimes it's
Sorry
just
to
a
hear
power
that.
of attorney, someone that might not even have experience with title.
Exactly.
And that it made for, we got it closed, but it just added so much more frustration, and not patting myself on the back, but luckily I'm very familiar with these types of transactions, and I was able to guide them a little bit If not, I think would still be waiting to close.
That's
Okay.
like me going to another state or
Right.
trying to close one of their deals. I have no clue what, you know,
Sure, sure.
their situations are.
So another question is, what type of coverage does someone need? Is it just, here's your coverage, one type, and everyone goes into it?
Actually, no. What we do at First Premier Title is we offer, it's called an Eagle policy.
Okay.
Okay, and what that does is gives extra protection on the policy in case a survey is not done, if our encroachments on the property,
Okay.
easements. It's just a better, like an upgrade on a policy.
All right. So let's say someone had the Eagle policy,
Mhm.
and it came out that a year later there was an encroachment by a neighbor. How's something like that handled?
Actually, that would be insured from our underwriter, First American.
Okay.
That's why we're making sure at the time of closing that everything's done properly. And that would arise then when we're doing our search at that point to see what the encroachments were and all of that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Now, who pays for the title insurance?
Actually, there's two policies that are issued. If it's a cash transaction, just the seller pays for the policy
Okay.
because they are insuring the purchaser. If the purchaser is taking a mortgage,
Okay.
then the purchaser is then buying a policy for the mortgage company. So there are two policies, one only if it's a cash, the seller pays it, two if there's a mortgage involved.
All right. And then who gets to pick who they get to use for the title company?
Actually, that's up to the seller of the property to pick which title company he would like to use and or the buyer. If they know somebody in the title business, it's up to them.
Okay. So if the buyer has to pay for title insurance to insure their mortgage, they get to pick that person.
Yeah.
If the seller obviously always has to pay for title insurance to insure the...
Yeah.
Now, does the state say they have to do this, or is it an optional thing?
As far as getting title insurance, actually, I wouldn't say that it's a state regulated thing. It's a protection thing. I've not seen a transaction where you wouldn't want to have title insurance.
Okay.
As a purchaser buying, I would not accept a policy, or excuse me, not a policy. I wouldn't accept buying a home unless I knew it was free and clear.
Sure. Sure, because they could always do something like a quick claim deed, but there's no coverage.
Exactly, and you don't know what that line of chain of title has been.
Right.
So you have somebody says, "Hey, I have this property." A seller says to a buyer, "I have this property. Give me $20,000 cash. I'll sign over a quick claim deed." Well, the minute that goes to, you're taking everything that was prior to that. That now becomes yours. You may have unpaid taxes. You may have state tax liens. You
Right,
may
there's
have
no guarantees.
no guarantee whatsoever.
Where a warranty deed has guarantees involved,
Correct.
which you need title insurance.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, actually, my father, when I was young, he purchased a home on land contract,
Okay.
and this is back in the 70s.
That land contracts are big then, yeah.
Were real big.
Mhm.
He purchased it, and then it came out that there were liens and encumbrances on this title that he had no knowledge
Oh,
on,
yeah.
and it almost doubled the price of the home back then.
Yeah.
Which was quite low, but still, back then it doubled the price of the home for him to get it free and clear. And, you know, his only
Yeah.
recourse was to take the previous owner to court, which...
Claim bankruptcy and, you know,
Exactly.
I mean,
No,
there's
that's what
always,
happened.
there's always a
Oh, yeah.
situation.
Now, every industry has its bad apples. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there, and there's a lot of title companies, and pretty much any title company you go to, just like the one I was telling you about earlier, they're going to try to do that title whether they know it or not. You know, just like realtors. There's a lot of realtors that will say, "Oh, yep, I'm a realtor. I've had 40 hours of class, so I can do everything."
Right.
Da, da, da. And it doesn't quite work that way. But there are those few occasions where you actually have bad apples out there. Someone who might issue the title insurance but not pay that premium
You know,
to the
that has
underwriter.
happened, yeah. And at that case, well, like with us, there are different, like our main underwriters, First American, there's Stewart Title and that. So if a claim did arise, let's just say that title company did go out of business, then that underwriter is the one responsible because that's who was issuing the policy.
Sure. And one of the ways you could ensure if it is a title company you've never heard of or maybe don't have a whole lot of longevity is could they actually contact the underwriter to
Oh,
make sure that
absolutely.
the premium was paid?
Yeah,
Which isn't a bad idea.
right.
Because if something does pop up, it's usually not going to be within 30 days.
No, we're
Okay.
looking probably a few years down the road, or when that buyer is now becoming the seller on that property.
Right.
Because to be honest with you, a lot of times, you know, you buy your home, you're happy, you get it in, a few years down the road, you don't think about anything, you go to sell it, and like, what do you mean that lien wasn't paid off? And we run into that quite often.
Yep.
You know that.
Yep.
Especially back in the day when you take out a double equity, take out your mortgage, then right away you'd get an equity line. Well, I'm
Sure.
not using the equity line, but we're still going to give it to you.
Right.
20 years down the road, that lien's on there, that Standard Federal is no longer in business. You know, it just becomes a tricky situation.
Yeah, we had one not too long ago, which was kind of interesting. We didn't sell the property to them. They had purchased it as new construction about 10 years previously. We get it, and what we always do with First Premier is we do pre-title work.
Right.
That way, we try to get ahead of the game. If something does pop up,
Right.
we want time to take care of it before we have a buyer, and now we're supposed to close in 5 days, and we can't close, and then you lose the buyer, and it gets to be messy. So we do pre-title work, which is very gracious of you guys to offer that. But in this case,
it's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
Because if there is a lien, like again, I'm going to use Standard Federal as an example. They're no longer in business, so we have to go through. Okay, then they were ABN AMRO, then they got sold to Countrywide, and then they got sold to this. So
Right.
it takes us something that you may have had a cash deal that, okay, we want to close, like I said, we could in 3 days on a normal basis,
Right.
but if something shows up where there's a lien, well, we're waiting for the company to figure out how we're going to get that discharge before we can actually close the transaction.
Oh, sure.
So that we can issue a free and clear policy.
we're just to ensure that the signer is legally able to sign.
Exactly.
But in this particular case, we had, and it was kind of cute. So we pull this and we do the pre-title work. When they had purchased the property, and they went through a small local title company back 10 years previous, they had put down the wrong legal. So the way the legal worked out was that the owner of this home actually did not own the property. They only owned 10 square feet of the house next door, and the next door neighbor legal included theirs.
Yeah, that's always
The builder had went out of business, and it took us about a week and a half to get that straightened up, which we were able to.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. 99% of things can always get straightened out. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer.
Right.
There are times where things just can't get figured out, and you have to go to court to do quiet title. And in that case, I mean, that's a whole nother ballgame. If that's someone that has a claim of interest that you can't find them, I mean, we won't even get into that. It doesn't happen too often.
It doesn't, but if it ever does, let me tell you, here again, that's where specialists are so important.
Right.
I have someone right now who's using their family member who's an attorney to quiet title. He's a divorce attorney. The quiet title is now on, I think, almost a year, which is ridiculous. If you went to a real estate attorney, this would happen much quicker, and he's lost his buyers and everything. But anyway, now are you ready for a speed round?
Speed round.
Yes.
Okay, so this is our speed round. Do you know what to look for in these particular situations? 1, if there's an estate involved.
Yes.
2, if it's a back-to-back closing.
Yes.
What would you do in a back-to-back closing?
I would, that's a good question, because what's happening now is, I had one yesterday, that we closed the seller was then going to another title company to purchase. Well, now because of the new camera apps with banking, we have to make sure that we wire those funds to the next closing, else they will put a hold on it, can't do it. So we have to make sure that the funds are available, we wire so there's no problems.
So if you have this situation where you want to sell your home and purchase a home, you want to make sure these things take place, because what will happen is you'll close on the property that you sold, you drive over and you're happy as heck to the new property you're purchasing, and the title company says, yeah, we're not going to take this. The funds need to be wired.
Right.
Now you're homeless. No cardboard box included. So we want to avoid all that. Next, what if a property is in probate?
We would need to see probate papers so that we can proceed to see who can sign on behalf of the probate.
Excellent. What if the property is in a trust?
Same thing, certificate of trust to make sure that the person can sign on behalf of the trust.
All right. What if there's a divorce situation?
Divorce situation, we would need to see a copy of the divorce, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the ex-spouse is not owed any money or there's no liens, and the person selling the property has owned it free and clear.
All right. And what if there's an association involved?
Association, we would get a hold of the association company to make sure there's no dues no delinquent dues, make sure that there's no assessments, and we know what to do.
And the most important question, after every closing, you always buy the realtor lunch, correct?
Absolutely not.
Oh, geez. Well, anyway, but when you're looking to do a complex transaction, pretty much if you're 50 years of age or older, you don't have the run-of-mill transaction. You want to make sure that you have specialists that's going to make this a smooth transaction and make it a great experience for you and your family. My name's Rich Sparks, Keller Williams Realty, your transitional adult specialist. And this is Tina from First Premier Title, your title specialist. We wish you the best of luck, and if there's anything we can ever do for you, just give us a ring.